Hello and welcome back to my humble show. I'm your host for today and every other day, the Articulate Thinker, hopefully, here to bring you art articles and articulation straight from Articulation Station, where I'll be assessing the situation, so be sure to like, subscribe, and enjoy the ride. Don't forget to turn on those bell notifications while you're at it. I won't ring it though, because it is 2:30 in the morning right now. That's right, I put delayed and articulate, and I hope you can appreciate that. I just felt like recording a show. I gotta go to bed soon. So I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible. If you like it, put a ring on it. Sharing is caring. All that other good stuff. Feel free to disagree with me on anything I may say. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you know. And yeah, I have a few clips to play. I have a couple of articles to read through and react to. What I'm going to do is show you this first and foremost so we can be on the same page here. This is a headline from the New York Post. It reads, Squad member Cori Bush losing by 22 points in new Dem primary poll. I mostly want to cover this because of how amusing it is, as you will soon see. Ignore the video on the screen here. I'm not going to play this one. But squad members were torched for voting against bill banning Hamas fighters from U.S. Cori Bush was one of them. Rashida Tlaib, another one. And this isn't going to be about that. This is going to be about, well, security. Security. Coming from someone who was very much on board with defunding the police, it has been interesting to see how Cori Bush has found herself under a bit of a spotlight, under a bit of scrutiny, because of her own spending in regards to security. So, yeah, a bit of a scandal for her, and it is hurting her in her re-election endeavors. So, let's check out some polls. Let's check out some pathetic material on her part. Squad member and U.S. Representative Cori Bush could lose big in this summer's Democratic primary, according to a new poll. A new poll by GOP firm Remington Research finds Bush, Democrat from Missouri, losing by 22 points to rival Wesley Bell in the August 6 contest. It's a big red flag for far-left squad lawmakers Josh Kroshaar, not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, editor-in-chief of Jewish Insider, posted on X. And I imagine he has his own bias, seeing as how he is Jewish and she was failing to condemn Hamas terrorists. But yes, this data is yet another example why pandering to the left-wing radicalism on Israel in the Dem primary or in the Dem party is a counterproductive strategy for Biden. La-di-da-di-da, la-di-da-di-da. While the poll was a small sample size of just 401 voters, the results are stark. So keep that in mind. As time goes by, maybe there will be some more polls which will show different results. I can't even say that I will be following this particularly closely. I just looked it up and I thought, you know what? Why not look up some clips? So I did just that. But let me get on with this before I get to the clips. In the survey conducted last week, 50% of those polled said they were in favor of Bell, a former prosecutor, with just 28% saying yes to Bush. The margin of error was 4.9%. And sorry about the advertisement on the screen here. Ignore that. Just don't ignore me. Bush has been one of the sharpest critics, though I would argue she's quite dull, sharpest critics of the Israeli government and Congress, and a vocal advocate for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. Her criticism of Israel following Hamas's October 7th attack, which killed at least 1,200 people, has made her a lightning rod and shows the chasm separating Democrats about how to respond to the Israel-Hamas war. And I know that there are ongoing attacks in various forms and fashions in Gaza, and different people feel different types of ways about all of that. I don't want to get into all of that right now. Regardless of what you think and what you feel, you are welcome to my channel, and I would be happy to know what you think and what you feel down in the comments below. All right, some of what Bush has said I believe that's a typo, has caused her some blowback within her Missouri congressional district, which includes all of her St. Louis and some of its suburbs. Her St. Louis does not belong to her. That was a speako on my part, not a typo. But she has not backed down. And yeah, in case you missed her, there she is. That there is her rival, Wesley Bell, who's polling 22 points better than her. The winner of the Democratic primary will be an overwhelming favorite to win the general election in November because the district is solidly Democratic and about 50% African American. It includes all of St. Louis, much of North St. Louis County, and a portion of West St. Louis County. All right, I'm going to dash through the rest of this before I crash. Here is a screenshot. The results of the poll, the aforementioned poll, as displayed by Josh Krashour. Again, my apologies if I'm mispronouncing his name. Breaking a new poll by GOP firm Remington Research finds anti-Israel squad member Cori Bush losing by 22 ! Points to Democratic rival Wesley Bell in primary. Big red flag for the far-left squad lawmakers. Now, what generally happens in cases such as these is the far-left lawmaker ends up getting replaced by an even further left lawmaker. Well, that sometimes happens. I shouldn't say it's the general consensus of a voting bloc or coalition to replace someone with someone who is even more extreme. Sometimes it flips and flops, and there's a referendum upon the current candidate, and then the district ends up with someone of the complete opposite nature, politically speaking. But we'll see what happens. I don't really know anything about Wesley Bell, so I'm not going to speak on him. I will get more into this as time goes by, I imagine, especially if this turns out to be a controversial outcome. But yes, survey conducted February 7 through February 9, 2024. 401, very small number, relatively speaking. Likely 2024 Democratic primary voters participated in the survey. Survey weighted to match expected turnout demographics for the 2024 Democratic primary election. Margin of error is plus minus 4.9% within a 95% level of confidence. Totals do not always equal 100%, that is, due to rounding. Survey conducted by Remington Research Group on behalf of the Missouri Scout. I'm slurring my words a bit. I am under the influence of sleep deprivation. That is all. That is it. The candidates in the Democratic primary for Missouri Congressional District 1 are Wesley Bell, Maria Chappelle Nadal, and Cori Bush. If the election were held today, for whom would you vote? So 50% said Wesley Bell, 4% said Maria Chappelle Nadal, 28% said Cori Bush. She is the incumbent there, so you'd think she'd have a little bit of a benefit. Guess her constituents aren't all that happy with her. But yes. So on and so forth. Josh Krashower adds, this data is yet another example of why pandering to the left-wing radicalism on Israel and the Dem Party is a counterproductive strategy for Biden. All right, so yeah. He has called Israel's response over the top in recent days. Bit of a contrast to what he was saying previously. But that's on the part of Joe Biden. This isn't about him. This isn't even really about Israel, so I will proceed with caution. Ryan Fournier says, whoa, Cori Bush from the squad is having to compete, almost said having a complete meltdown. She is having to compete in a new district for her, and she is losing by 22 points. That really sucks, Cori, said no one ever. So he adds this old clip of her explaining taxes. And just ask yourself how exactly she made it into Congress in the first place. Enjoy this.
The wealthy should pay their fair share.
Yes, wealthy should pay their fair share.
What is a fair share? What percentage?
So you're saying that you're saying that they're paying their fair share is what you're saying?
No, I'm asking what percentage is a fair share?
Their fair share, the same, if a third of my money is going to taxes, then I think a third of their money should be going to taxes. It does. Well, it does.
I'm trying to understand because you realize the effective tax rate on the poor is less than it is on the rich, right?
Okay, so first of all, I'm not the poor. I'm very close to that line, but I'm not the poor.
Okay, so the effective tax rate on the middle class is less than it is on the rich, correct? What fair share would you like to change the tax rate to on the wealthiest what percentage of Americans so it's a fair share?
So let's say the wealthy 1% could pay, let's say if they paid, let's just give them 45%.
Okay. That did not go her way. Embarrassing for her. Apologies if there has been any lagging. Judging by the signs on the wall, which say Cori Bush for Congress 2018, I'm guessing this is from a few years ago. I had never actually seen the clip before today, but yeah, shout out to Ryan Fournier. Not sure for sharing that. So I have a few more clips which I will share with you, and they'll lead into this issue of security, the funding of her own security, in contrast to her claims about how she wanted to defund the police while protecting herself. Okay, but yes, this is relatively recent. 12 days ago was when this was uploaded to the GOP War Room account on YouTube. Yeah. A bit of a news update.
This breaking news now. Sources have confirmed to Fox News that far-left Democrat squad member Cori Bush of Missouri is now under federal investigation for misusing federal security money.
And in case you can't see the title of the video, Defund the Police supporter Cori Bush is under investigation for misusing federal security money.
Bush has spent more than $750,000 on private security since she was elected in 2020. Now remember, these are the same people who defunded the police, but then had to have private security. A watchdog has also demanded that the Federal Election Committee investigate $62,000 of that money that Bush paid to her now husband. He was her boyfriend back then. She hired him to be a security guard from her campaign account.
Reminds me of Fani Willis, does it not? Prosecuting Trump in Georgia. Turns out she was having an affair with one of her prosecutors. So that's another scandal. But we'll talk about that later. Let's talk about this now.
You may remember Congresswoman Bush, one of the big proponents of defunding the police in 2020. I mention it again because look how much she spent to make sure she certainly didn't defund her protection.
I'm going to continue to lay all of this out, but just as she was determined to defund the police while simultaneously maintaining her own support, her own security support, well, the other members of the squad also found themselves in similar situations. They didn't end up in such a scandal because they weren't paying their boyfriends to be their security guards, but that's what she did, and that is why she is now facing a scandal of her own. Here is a bit of an explanation on her part on MSNBC on Joy Reid's show from 11 days ago.
So what was happening, there were a lot of issues with us retaining just good staff. What was happening, we had, we couldn't pay the big costs for security like some of my colleagues are able to do. Yeah. And so we went with what we could afford. It worked out for a while, but then we started having call-offs, people just not showing up to work.
Did they not want to work for you? I wonder why. You're kind of an awful person. Or at least an awful politician. Correct me if I'm wrong. Excuses, excuses, excuses.
People sleeping on the job. Yeah. And so it was very hard for me to have security when it was unreliable. And so what was happening was Courtney would fill in. He would volunteer. And sometimes he would even when he was there and they were working, he would say, hey, you should be standing over here. Right. Hey, you should be doing that. And so he was volunteering a lot of his time. Mm-hmm. And then we had someone who was kind of leading the group, leading the team who could no longer do it. One day just called and said, I won't be back for 3 months. Right. It left me in a position. There was no way I could manage a security team plus the work that I was doing. And so he was able to pick up that slack.
Oh, he was able to pick up that slack, was he? You couldn't possibly figure out another option. So, first come, first serve. And, you served your boyfriend a healthy helping of, I don't know how much you paid him, but apparently she paid him to be her security guard. Or wait, maybe the point is that she was able to save money that way. Either way, it's not going well for her. But yeah, she was all for taking away everyone else's security. Not her own, though. New Democrat Congresswoman-elect Cori Bush says she wants to defund the police. You can bet we haven't seen the last of this horrific BS, says Robbie Starbuck. This should be in every GOP ad for the special elections. Dems are the party of people who want to defund our police. Yeah, they pretend these days that they never intended to defund the police, but they did, and they would tell you all about it way back in 2020 when this clip was produced, courtesy of, once again, Cori Bush. Here's what she had to say back then.
We have this super aggressive police department, and they don't get to continue to just kill black folks in my community and I not say anything. So yes, defund your butts. Defund you. Take that money that we're using for MRAPs, the money that we're using for tear gas and stockpiling SWAT gear. We're going to take that money and put it into substance use programs. We're going to put it into education and mental health resources. We're going to take it and use it for our unhoused population. We are reallocating funds. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's district. Anybody from keeping their seats. I'm not looking at feelings, though. I'm looking at life. I'm trying to...
Really, really, really? Okay. The problem is, when they tried to enact these sorts of policies, crime rates, murder rates only went up back in, again, 2020, during that time frame. So it didn't work out all that well, which is why many Democrats now pretend that they never intended to defund the police in the first place. But there she was, saying it herself, saying we have to defund the police, just not her own security patrol. She has to protect herself. Because she's very self-entitled. Or something like that. This from Jerry Dunleavy, another old clip. This one from 2021. In less than 30 seconds. And I'll go ahead and play the clip. No need to read the caption there.
I'm going to make sure I have security because I know I have had attempts on my life and I have too much work to do. There are too many people that need help right now for me to allow that. So if I end up spending $200,000, if I spend 10 more dollars on it, you know what? I get to be here to do the work. So suck it up, and defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police and put that money into social safety net. I'm going to make sure.
It has to happen. It has to happen. We have to defund the police, but make sure that I'm protected. So she was justifying her own expenditures there in response to questions which she faced after calling for the defunding of the police. And yeah, as time has gone by, the scandal has grown and grown and grown. Well, really it has grown just recently, now that it has been discovered that she was procuring the protection of her lover. But here's another old clip. This one from 2022, making our way through the years. Tried to put some of these in chronological order. She was on the Breakfast Club here. And the caption by Steve Guest reads, Democrat Representative Cori Bush says Democrats cannot be afraid to talk about what defund the police means. We cannot. Here's the clip.
But we also cannot be afraid to talk about what defund the police means. You know, we cannot. And that's my issue. It's like, you know, you can't, the anger cannot be, you know, oh, defund the police makes people, it pushes people back. It makes people feel a type of way. We don't want to say that, you know, because the Republicans are coming against us. No. You know, they don't get to tell us what our message is. Fix the problem, and then I won't have to say defund the police. But
okay. Well, that's kind of your job, right? You're the one in Congress. Maybe you're talking about the Republicans, because it's on everyone else. It's always everyone else's fault. It's never your fault. Never the policies that you're pushing, which are producing crime in this case. This notion that if you get rid of protections, the crime goes away is nonsense. It doesn't work that way. Not in this world. This very, very much fallen world. Okay. So another clip from 2022. This one a few months later.
And you've stuck by it. In fact, you're one of the few Democrats now who still says, let's defund the police. Are you?
Now, notice how he says you're one of the few Democrats now, because the number was rapidly reducing, especially as the crime rates, murder rates, that sort of thing went up in the cities which were trying to implement those policies.
Are you worried at all that could hurt some of your colleagues going into the midterm elections?
see, the thing about defund the police is we have to tell the entire narrative. People hear defund the police, but you know what they'll say? Say reallocate, say divest, say move. But it's still the same thing. We can't get caught up on the words. People spend more time focusing on the word defund than they spend on caring and addressing the problem of police violence in this country.
And
okay. So she's about that life. Props to her for not switching it up, not flipping it up as fast as the others, at least. But yeah, she's just holding on to a bad idea for dear life there, while being the hypocrite that she is. And that wasn't enough for her. That wasn't all for her. Here's something from the Daily Caller. And by the way, that last clip was from Daily Wire. Missouri Representative Cori Bush, speaking about white supremacy. We have a mandate to legislate in defense of black lives. The first step in that process is to root out white supremacy, starting with impeaching the white supremacist in chief. And this is actually jumping back in time. again, to 2021. Wow. 2021. This is during the second impeachment. Yes, that's right. Of Donald Trump. Just before he, was officially out of office.
From Missouri, Ms. Bush.
The gentlewoman from Missouri is recognized for 30 seconds.
Madam Speaker, St. Louis and I rise in support of the article of impeachment against Donald J. Trump. If we fail to remove a white supremacist president who incited a white supremacist insurrection, it's communities like Missouri's 1st District that suffer the most. The 117th Congress must understand that we have a mandate to legislate in defense of Black lives. The first step in that process is to root out white supremacy, starting with impeaching the white supremacist in chief. Thank you, and I yield back.
From Missouri in chief, I'm pretty sure the policies which you were pushing were more hurtful to your community than Donald Trump's white supremacist ways. And I'm not agreeing that he's a white supremacist. I think that's a nonsensical notion, though he has his flaws, to say the least. Okay, so I thought I had something pulled up where she's speaking about reparations. Oh, I do. There it is. But let me first play this one first. Her on CNN defending her Defund the Police. Still have my clips a bit out of order, but this is back into 2022, October of 2022.
If you could do it again, would you still double down or use that slogan, defund the police?
Absolutely.
So, there you have it. Still about that life. Says, absolutely. She would still double down and use that slogan, defund the police. Onto this clip where she's speaking about reparations. This will be fun.
United States has a moral and legal obligation to provide reparations for the enslavement of Africans. Black people in our country cannot wait any longer for our government to begin addressing each and every one of the extraordinary bits of harm, all of the harm it has caused since the founding. United States has a moral and legal obligation to provide reparations.
Moral and legal obligation to provide reparations. On what basis exactly? Just skin color? That sounds a little bit like a racist policy to me. But that's what she wants. You know, if I'm not mistaken, Sunny Hostin of The View the other day found out that she was a descendant of slave owners. She was a bit perturbed about that. Yeah, perturbed is a good word for that. Similar to Kamala Harris, who was also a descendant of slave owners. Do they also deserve reparations? What about, I don't know, say LeBron James, does he deserve reparations? Where exactly do you draw the line? Do half white people get half the amount of reparations? If, I don't know, if I'm like 10% African American because somewhere along the line I had an African American descendant, do I get like 10% of the, I don't know, given amount of reparation? Just what exactly are you proposing here? I don't think you ever have to be that specific. You don't understand taxes. I don't think you understand reparations all that well either. Plus, it's never, or at least not in the near future, going to be implemented on a grand scale. So for the most part, you just get to pander and talk about it hypothetically, putting the pathetically and hypothetically, and it's never going to come to fruition. So you just sound like you care a lot, mostly about yourself and your own security. But yeah, Cori Bush, who wanted to defund the police, now wants the government to pay reparations because, of course, she does. You want to pay the Native Americans reparations as well? What about, I don't know, Asians, Irish? List goes on and on. Everybody's gone through something. Huh. Okay. That's a more recent clip, I believe, from May of last year. But here's this article. Back to the more recent headlines. This one from the Daily Mail. Hyper woke squad member Cori Bush is forecast to lose Democratic primary by 22 points, new poll shows, after she used taxpayer funds to pay husband to act as bodyguard while calling for police to be defunded. So yeah, he was previously her boyfriend. She went on to marry him. I don't know the exact timeline of all of those events, but that's part of what's hurting her campaign strategy. The Missouri Congresswoman, 47, is behind rival Wesley Bell by a staggering 22 points in a new poll. Bush has faced backlash in recent months, including a federal investigation into alleged spending misuse for her bodyguard husband. The squad member also came under fire for voting against banning Hamas terrorists involved in October 7th attacks from the U.S. Things that didn't age well. Number beep boop bop. Squad member Cori Bush may lose her seat in Congress in landslide fashion this summer, according to a new poll. I already talked about that. I don't need to read through all of this article. Bush, who was on the ballot in the Democratic primary on August 6th, was hit last month with a federal investigation over allegations she misused taxpayer funds to employ her husband as her private security guard. The former nurse and BLM activist has also seen her support drop over controversial remarks on the Israel-Hamas conflict, including voting against banning Hamas terrorists involved in the October 7th attacks from entering the U.S. The poll sampled only 401 likely Democrat voters in the upcoming primaries, but found a large chasm in support for Bush compared to Bell. Oh, wait a second. Bell, a prosecutor in St. Louis County, registered at 50% support among those polled, while Bush came in at 28%. He previously faced his own accusations of misspending $30,000 of taxpayer funds. This included expensing an $816 dinner in a Miami steakhouse and spending $8,000 on a new office furniture after he assumed office, including a new espresso machine, reports the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Maybe not quite as unethical as what she did, but maybe there's something to that. Again, I don't really know anything about Bell. All I know is that you should turn your notification bell on. Pun intended, obviously. The Democratic primary is seen as essentially the contest to win the seat in Congress, as the district is solidly Democratic and a Republican has not held office since 1949. Congresswoman Bell could not be contacted for comment and does not appear to have a press contact listed on her website. How convenient. The dismal polling comes after Bush faced severe backlash in recent months following the federal investigation, which she quickly blamed on right-wing organizations because they're racist and white supremacist, right? Want to hold the black woman down. Bush shot to prominence during the 2020 BLM protests and firmly came out behind the Defund the Police movement, despite spending over $750,000 on private security since she was elected last year, or that year. Gotta get my words right here. Sparking allegations of hypocrisy. I gotta call it quits very, very soon. Last month, the Department of Justice subpoenaed the Congresswoman for records related to the misuse of funds for this private security after she hired her husband, Courtney Merritt, as her bodyguard. I was saying boyfriend earlier. If I'm not mistaken, he was her boyfriend originally, Bush's had previously met her husband. Okay, that's a typo, not a speako. Bush had previously met her husband after he was hired to her security detail following her election, and they tied the knot in a private ceremony in early 2023. Oh, see? Haven't been married all that long. While hiring family members is frowned upon, it is not illegal. It would only be illegal if another typo, Bush paid for her now spouse over fair market value. Over fair market value. So that's what's being investigated, I suppose. In 2022, he was on the payroll of her re-election campaign, and the investigation follows an ethics watchdog demanding an investigating into the $62,000 she paid Merritt's from her campaign funds. It also emerged that Merritt's was paid as Bush's security guard despite not having a license, which is required by the St. Louis Police Department, according to a Fox News report. Merritt's was reportedly also not licensed for security in Washington, D.C., so that could get him in trouble. When confronted by the media after news of the federal investigation broke, Bush insisted she wasn't the subject of the investigation and scolded reporters for asking the question. You woke scold you? In the face of critics branding her staggering security spending hypocritical given her stance on police funding for the rest of her constituents, Bush argued it was a necessity due to threats to her safety. Listen, I'm not denying that she might face some threats. She's a member of Congress, very controversially such. But, when she's calling for everyone else to have their security taken away via defunding the police, can't feel too bad for you when you lose your own security. Not that she did. Since before I was sworn into office, I have endured relentless threats on my physical safety and life, she told reporters on the House steps after the investigation was announced. She added that as a rank-and-file member of Congress, she is not entitled to personal protection. And yet she acts so entitled, does she not? Instead, she claims she has used campaign funds to retain security services, including her husband, who she said has extensive experience in the field. I have not yet, or not used, any federal tax dollars for personal security services. Any reporting that I have used federal funds for personal security is simply false, she insisted. And it could be that she, did something slightly unethical but not illegal, and therefore she will get off the hook. Either way, it looks like she's going to lose the election. People are tired of her shenanigans. What all has she accomplished? You might wonder. Well, I wonder the same thing. Months before the investigation was launched, Bush also caught the ire of critics after voting against a measure to ban Hamas terrorists involved in the October 7th attacks from entering the U.S. Bush, who was joined in her no vote by fellow squad member Rashida Tlaib, branded the measure as redundant and argued it was designed to incite hate, which she has a tendency to do herself. I opposed H.R. 6679 because it is redundant. It's empty messaging bill Republicans are using to target migrants and incite anti-Palestinian hate, she tweeted. Republicans have zero credibility on these issues, as if Cori Bush has credibility on anything. Despite opposition from the two progressive lawmakers, the bill easily passed in the House in a 422-2 vote because Cori Bush and Rashida Tlaib, they diverted from the voting of all of the Democrats. All the Democrats, even. So that was a truly bipartisan bill there. Those are few and far between. All right, I'm done causing a scene here. Took me a lot longer than I intended for it to take. Maybe I should use this as my thumbnail. I'm not sure. What should I use as my thumbnail? I'll figure it out post-production. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep in touch. Keep in tune. New content is coming soon. Peace.